Yeah! Hi everybody, welcome to Weird Wednesday. My name is Disco Dave. I am your guest host for tonight. Laird couldn't make it, so I want to tell you a little bit about why I'm guest hosting tonight. Everybody has a favorite movie, a movie that they can watch over and over again on a loop, and they never get bored with it. A movie that no matter what bad mood you're in, it always puts you in a good mood. And this is that movie for me, Skatetown U.S.A. My all-time favorite movie. So, this movie came out in 1979. In '79, disco had just hit its peak, and 4,000 roller skating rinks had opened up across the country. It was a phenomenon. So this filmmaker named William A. Levy decided to take advantage of it. Now, if some of you were here 3 months ago on Terror Tuesday, you saw Levy's first film, Blackenstein. All right. So after Blackenstein, Levy kind of got stuck in exploitation film mode. His next film was Wham Bam Thank You Spaceman. And then he directed The Happy Hooker Goes to Washington. And Skatetown USA was his first opportunity to make a big Hollywood movie. He actually had some named stars. He had Scott Baio and Marie McCormick. I mean, TV stars, but this movie's kind of a who's who of TV character actors from the 70s. So he wanted to take advantage of it, so he looked at what he could get inspiration from. And the disco movement was going on, even though it was kind of petering down a little bit, even though it crested. And because he saw the disco movement, he got inspiration from a roller disco called Flippers Roller Boogie Palace in West Hollywood. Now, Flippers was kind of the Studio 54 of roller discos. In West Hollywood, it was the hangout place to go to. It had a lot of celebrities. It had this huge roller skating rink. It had a big stage with live performers. It had famous DJs. And celebrities were there every night, as well as a bunch of LA kind of hip folks. So, because Flippers was so popular and because disco was so popular, he decided to put this project together. And it ended up becoming a really historic film. It was a film full of firsts. So, first of all, he rush released it so it would hit theaters before Xanadu and Roller Boogie, and it actually ended up being the first roller disco film of all time. It released October, 2 months before Roller Boogie did. It also was the first screenplay by its writer, Nick Castle. Now, Nick Castle, some of you know who Nick Castle is, that's great. So Nick Castle, at that time, had only gotten a taste of Hollywood movies. He was buddies with John Carpenter, and if you saw the first Halloween movie, you saw his work because he played Michael Myers. He wore the mask. After that, he had co-written Escape from New York, and then he went on, Escape from New York, and then he went on to be a director, and he directed The Last Starfighter. And probably his greatest film achievement, Damon Wayans' Major Pain. So this movie also is the feature film debut of one of the greatest actors of my time. He's no longer with us, but I think he's one of the best performers I've ever seen in a film, Ron Palillo. So most of you know Ron Palillo as the talking pig drill sergeant in Laverne and Shirley Join the Army cartoon. Some of you know him as the first victim in Friday the 13th Part 6. But his kind of a couple of you might know him from his role as Arnold Horseshack on Welcome Back, Cod. So now Ron never liked to play the same character more than once. He didn't want to get typecast as that nerd character. So every time you see him in a movie, he's a completely different character. And so for Skatetown USA, he decided to play this role as a homicidal maniac. So he is violent, he's angry, he uses a pea shooter as his chosen weapon, and he is the number two thug in a gang called the West Side Wheelers. And they are a gang of switchblade-wielding, satin jacket-wearing, synchronized roller skaters who terrorize roller rinks across the country. And so the tough head of the leader of this gang is also an actor a couple of you might know, Patrick Swayze. Now this is Patrick Swayze's first film. Before he did this, he was on Broadway doing Grease, because as you probably know, Patrick Swayze was known as a dancer for a long time. But when he was a child, he was actually a professional roller skater. He did competitions, And this movie is actually a reunion for him. When you see the film, he has a duet dance in it with April Allen. And April Allen was also a professional roller skater. And they used to roller skate together back when they were 9 years old in competitions and win. So this is kind of a reunion film for him. But it's also, so you should watch closely. The first time they introduced the Western Wheelers, Patrick Swayze goes down Sunset Boulevard on his roller skates and he jumps over a car. Watch that clip because he starts flipping backwards and then they cut the film because he totally trashed, he totally fell out, hit his back on the pavement hard and almost was in traction and missed the rest of the film. But luckily he was okay, so he's in the rest of the film, but you should watch that because it's a little thing you don't normally notice unless you keep your eye open for it. The other first was for the star of this film, Greg Bradford. Now, Greg Bradford was also a professional dancer and was also a professional roller skater. After this movie, he was only in a couple more films. He starred in the movie Love Lines. He was on some episodes of Facts of Life. And now he composes music for porn. So one of the things that I really enjoy about this movie is a party. And that's what disco was all about. It has wall-to-wall music. It has bands performing, it has disco troops, roller disco troops throughout it, and it has both improv and old vaudeville comics throughout the whole film. But it was also a party both in front of the camera and behind the scenes. Scott Baio, who plays the best friend in this movie, he was angry throughout the whole thing because he felt it was too unprofessional. There was too much partying, too much drugs. And Maureen McCormick, who played Marsha Brady, she attributes Skatetown U.S.A. for her coke habit. So she was high throughout the entire film. Now, this movie has everything. It has a sky-high Marsha Brady. It has Flip Wilson. Do you guys know who Flip Wilson is? All right. So Flip Wilson plays the manager of the Skatetown U.S.A. and he also brought out his character Geraldine, who plays his mother.
Oh my God, yes!
And his father is played by Billy Barney, if you guys know. So it was a perfect pair. So, I mean, they look identical. So this also has Judy Landers, Ruth Buzzy, the unknown comic, Sidney Lassick from, what's that movie Sidney Lassick was in? One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Dave Mason, Dorothy Stratton being wooed by an old vaudeville comic who happens to be Dean Martin's uncle. 300 roller skaters were used in this movie, and it has a DJ wizard who shoots lightning bolts from his hand and makes roller skaters and band members appear. So this is the ultimate roller disco movie. It does not lie. Now, just to give you some context, this is a roller disco movie, so it has about 15 minutes of story, and between that, it's long scenes of roller skating and roller disco and dancing and bands playing and things like that, but it's all fun. And but I want to also give you some context on why this is such an important screening. So being my favorite film, this is not available on VHS or DVD or Blu-ray. It's never going to be released on home video because it's wall-to-wall music from the beginning to the end. It's just non-stop music. The thing is, 6 years ago, I got the opportunity to see it in a theater in Hollywood, which we figured would be the perfect place to see this movie, since that's where it takes place, that's where it was shot, that's where it was inspired. And I got to the theater and it was chock full of people, and I was like, this is exciting. This is going to be, all these people are going to be sharing the experience that I love this movie so much. And the second the lights went down, their cell phones turned on and their mouths started opening and they talked about the whole movie. The guy sitting in the row in front of me was texting a guy 2 rows in front of him. It was an absolute nightmare. I would have complained to the manager, but he was yelling at the screen too. And this is that kind of movie. If you talk for this, if you even blink, you're going to miss something, because this is like Airplane. There's something happening every fraction of a second. And but that's not going to happen tonight, right? And you know why? Because we will kick your ass out. So that's what I love about the Alamo. So just a reminder, if you don't know if this is your first time, you get 1 warning. If you talk or you bring up your cell phone or anything like that, disturb anybody, you get 1 warning. If you do it a second time, you're out, you lose your $3, you have to pay for your food, and you're out on the street and you miss an opportunity of a lifetime, because you're not going to get a chance to see this movie that often. So I also want you to all give a big hand for Josh Brown, who's our DJ wizard up in the booth, spinning those booth vibes. And I also want you to think about your waitstaff. So the waitstaff tonight, they're going to be missing out on being able to see this movie because they're going to be serving your lazy-ass food. The other thing is you're going to appreciate them that much more because of the sanitary conditions. Because when you see how the snack bar is operated in this movie, you're going to be grateful that they're not putting your food in their mouths and not sticking their hands in it. This is definitely the waitstaff to have. So you want to think about them and tip really well and tip more than you normally do because you need to appreciate how cleanly they are in comparison to the ones in this film. So the other thing to remember is next Wednesday is a very, very important movie. It's called Blood Games. It is the greatest female softball team versus backwoods hillbillies killer film of all time. I don't believe it's available on home video, and it's a very, very rare 35mm print. I've heard it's beautiful. I will not be hosting, but I will be here. I've already got my seats, and you should get yours too. All right, so get your disco vibe on, because it's time to boogie on down with Skatetown.